Artificial intelligence is offering hope to women suffering from breast cancer. Researchers in Sweden found AI appears to be able to find some breast cancers earlier than human doctors and more of them. The disease is one of the leading causes of death around the world. But could that be about to change? Hello and welcome to the programme. I'm Enda Brady. Now, if breast cancer is detected early, patients are far more likely to survive. Those statistics are very clear. That's why there is a great sense of hope and excitement over the use of artificial intelligence screening and what breakthroughs may lie ahead.
Researchers from Lund University looked at scans for more than 80,000 women in Sweden who underwent a mammogram between April 2021 and July 2022. Half of the scans were assessed by 2 breast cancer radiologists and the other half were assessed by an AI-supported screening tool, then reviewed by radiologists. The scans that were read with AI had 20% more cancers detected than the group that did not. Doctors say the main advantage at this point is that it cuts down the workload of radiologists and speeds up screening. But faster, earlier detection means thousands of lives saved. Is this just the beginning of how AI can help keep humans healthy?
Joining me today in the studio, Dr. Anil Jain, a consultant radiologist in Manchester with extensive experience in clinical artificial intelligence teaching and research work. In Lowestoft in the UK, Professor Karol, Sikora, a clinical oncologist and former chief of the World Health Organization's cancer program. And also in the studio, Lucie Glenday, co-founder and chief product officer of MySense.AI. That's a health analytics platform powered by artificial intelligence. Karol, I'll come to you first. Just tell me, how excited is the medical world about this recent study about AI and what it can do in terms of breast cancer screening?
I think we're very excited. I mean, we're moving to a digital age, and I'm sure we'll hear more about this in a moment. But within oncology, it's all about using mathematical data in images, digitized, to make decisions. Now, the 2 areas that really stand out are, first of all, radiotherapy, where the image is everything. The image tells you where you want to deliver the radiation, and you can connect the 2, where the tumor is, where to deliver the radiation. The other area is in chemotherapy, trying to personalize the way in which we give chemotherapy to the individual. So many factors involved. Human brain can't sort them out. Experienced oncologist, I've been a consultant for 40 years, I can't sort it out, the computer can. We're going to see a total transition in the next decade of cancer because of AI.
Anil, these are early days. How excited should we be?
I mean, I think as Karol mentioned, I'm very excited about it. I think about 15 years back, we were doing computer-aided detection, and AI is further significant advancement on that. So it is not only breast cancer screening, but also colorectal lung screening, reading chest x-rays, and as Karol mentioned, radiotherapy and oncology, other application also. In breast cancer screening, considering the numbers, we have, I think each unit is screening 50, 60,000 women, and fairly large number of women that are being screened. So AI has a significant role to play. And I think I would say it is like an additional tool for radiologists, just like a stethoscope, and additional pair of eyes, because we are human beings, we get tired, And AI helps in that as a second reader. So quite an exciting field for certainly breast screening. And I think you mentioned about the trial 2 years back, and those were retrospective trials, So this trial from Sweden is a prospective trial. So that is a very significant trial. And obviously I will comment more, as your discussion goes on.
Lucie, I want to bring you in. What's the buzz like in the industry inside it looking at all of the data that's come out of Sweden recently. And I mean, this should be enormously exciting times.
Oh, it is exciting times. I mean, machines are really good at doing repetitive tasks. We all know this. And AI gives us the opportunity to learn and grow and further our understanding of what's going on in front. I think one of the things that AI is also brilliant at is personalised medicine. And I think that's where this really excels. And the study coming out of Sweden, obviously, is very much focused about how we can provide personalised level medicine into these cancer patients as we move forward, which is fabulous.
I want to read to you something that was in the British Medical Journal just 2 years ago. So this was the BMJ, very, very respected publication just 2 years ago. They said there is insufficient evidence that AI breast cancer screening is accurate enough to replace human scrutiny. Current evidence on the use of AI systems in breast cancer screening is a long way from having the quality and quantity required for its implementation into clinical practice. I mean, Karol, everything has changed in a very short space of time.
I think it has, and obviously we're speaking to the converted here, but I think many of my colleagues now realise they aren't going to be able to do without AI in the practice of oncology, whether it's in diagnosis, breast screening, other types of screening, but also in the treatment. And I think there are just so many variables. If you have two patients with the same type of cancer down the microscope, yet they're going to behave differently, how they handle the cancer and how the cancer spreads in their body. If we can understand all the pool of data that we've got, massive amounts of data, we can make predictions that would guide our treatment much more accurately. And that's the big hope for the next decade.
Karol, talk us through the importance of an early diagnosis. When a woman has breast cancer, how important is it that that is noticed, treated, and everything gets moving very quickly?
Well, we call the early stages stage 1, which means the disease is confined to the breast. Gradually, with time, it becomes stage 2 to lymph nodes, stage 3 to lymph nodes away from the breast, and then stage 4 when it spreads around the body. Stage 1 cancer is 90% curable, 98% curable in the case of the breast, but it's the same for all the common cancers, breast, colon, lung, and prostate. So early stage cancer confined to the organ it arises is completely curable. So picking up stage 1 cancer is really vital and will change the whole survival figures. Anything we can do to pick up cancers earlier is good news, and that's where the hope of AI in diagnostic imaging comes, obviously.
Anil, you mentioned earlier on that you see AI as being another tool, like another stethoscope for a doctor in clinical practice. Your reading of the early diagnosis, I mean, that is the absolute key point, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, I think AI is very good in pattern recognition, and I think that helps it, like in the trial from Sweden, working with a radiologist, picking up cancers, and then 2 radiologists in the control arm reading the mammograms and coming out with similar sort of findings, that is similar sort of missed rate, false negative rate, similar sort of thing, So that is very exciting. And as I mentioned, it is a prospective trial, as compared to the trial which was in the BMJ 2 years back, that was a retrospective trial. So that is very significant that this is basically, they were trialing it as they were going along with patient care. I mean, I think clearly, the one, word of caution is that AI is very good, so it is picking up perhaps very small in situ cancer, before they became invasive cancer, So there are much higher number of in situ cancer in the trial arm, which is sometimes challenging because breast screening is sometimes accused of overdiagnosis, So we have to be, we still have to involve the radiologist making the decision for breast assessment and further diagnosis and treating the patient. I think this trial also isn't finished as yet, because they will look at interval cancer in these women who were screened And interval cancers are cancer which develop between 2 screening episodes. So for example, this screening is read now. They will have another screening in 2 years' time. And if there is a cancer developing in between, so that is the rate, they will be looking at in 2 arms of those trials. So it will be significant to see those results.
Anil, have you any concerns about maybe a percentage, a tiny percentage, of false positives popping up as a result of AI?
I mean, I think the trial clearly shows that the results are very similar, with artificial intelligence along with radiologists and 2 radiologists, So I think that is not a major concern. And I think I believe that in the UK, we are a little bit slow adopting new techniques, so we will adopt it going forward much more quickly. And but not only breast screening, so there are other cancer screening, which I mentioned to you previously, like colorectal, like lung cancer screening, in which artificial intelligence is going to play a key role.
Lucie, can I ask you, at what point do you think governments and health services will start reaching out to companies like yours saying we've got a budget and we want AI powering our screening units?
I think that's an interesting question. I hope sooner rather than later, if I'm honest. I think what a lot of these technologies provide is transformational ability to essentially deliver clinical care. And you have to put it into organisations that are ready to transform, because it's not all about doing the same thing with these amazing tools. It's about being able to look at pathways and be able to adjust those accordingly. A great example, with our product is, we are able to get ahead of sort of unplanned admissions by around 46% using our product, which is an extraordinary number. But the teams that are using it within the NHS have had to modify their pathways to be able to make that a reality. So I say it with an enthusiasm and an absolute, has to be the direction of travel, particularly for the NHS with the current strain it's under. However, I think there are challenges in its implementation. I think we need to be aware of those as we move forward.
Karol, can I ask you, do you think a patient cares where the diagnosis comes from, whether it's a human or a robot, so long as they find out yes or no, have I got cancer?
No, they don't care. But if you get a recall after a screening test and it turns out positive, you're sort of lucky in the fact that it's caught early, and it doesn't really matter whether it's AI or human. I think the other great advantage of AI is predicting what's going to happen. There are AI programs that can predict cardiac arrest in hospitals by looking at various parameters. So many parameters are measured every day: blood pressure, heart rate, electrocardiograms, electrolyte levels in the blood, and so on. And what the AI can do is predict where someone's likely to go into an irreversible decline of their body organs and ultimately cardiac arrest. So rather than everyone shooting around the hospital with a crash trolley, you can actually predict someone is likely to have a problem, investigate it in a timely manner. And it's sort of the same with cancer. As we've heard, if you can get cancer earlier, even earlier than cancer, an abnormality that's a pre-cancer, you could actually avoid it. Criminal use of AI is great. I mean, the police are using the AI to try and predict where crimes are going to occur. It's the same for cancer. You can predict up to a point, and I think in the next decade, it'll be much more developed. People will know that something is going to happen, and we can take the remedies necessary, which could be long-term: diet, vitamin supplements, and so on, to actually reduce the risk of them developing cancer.
Anil, you've been in the consulting room with many patients who I'm guessing you've had to break very difficult news to over the years. Do you think patients will care where the news comes from, whether it's a doctor or a robot? They just want the information.
I think patient would want the information. I agree, but I think what this study is not saying is that there is no involvement of radiologist. So basically, what we are doing here is that AI is acting as a second reader. So you got a radiologist and a second reader AI. And in the control arm, you had 2 radiologists. So basically, we are not replacing radiologist completely. So radiologists are very much there. There is element of that discussion in the team, when deciding, what further tests to do and all that process, So I think patient would be reassured that it isn't just a computer, giving the diagnosis. They are getting, highly trained radiologists are involved in that, and they will apply the further acumen there. If the cancer is diagnosed, then as Karol said, depending on the stages, they will go through the MDT process, and their treatment wouldn't suffer at all, So essentially, this is like a extra pair of eyes, looking at the screening mammograms. I just want to add, that another area in which artificial intelligence is getting traction is in the pathology, that is after doing the biopsy of breast specimen or prostate, So there is also artificial intelligence involved in acting as a double reader, along with the pathologist. So wherever there is pattern recognition, they can do that work, but along with a highly trained radiologist or pathologist. And I think I know in Wales, they are doing some work on that for breast cancer and prostate cancer. So I think, I would think, that considering that in the NHS we are short of staff, we should be adopting this technology not as a threat to staff, but as a tool to help them deliver
Anil, I
better.
want to ask you, what could be the knock-on impact on waiting lists? Because once a person is diagnosed,
Yes.
they then have to wait for treatment. Is there any kind of positive here?
I think the waiting list, clearly is a challenge, because in the NHS we got a shortage of staff across the board, and I think because AI is essentially working with trained consultant, whether it is in radiology, oncology, or histopathology, So I think AI itself wouldn't resolve the issue of shortage of staff and sorting out the waiting list for operation and the rest of the things, But I think it's sort of helping the diagnostic process, and then obviously the much more involved biopsy, treatment process, further radiotherapy, chemotherapy, So I think we need to be clever, and while accepting AI, we shouldn't forget that we need more clinicians as well.
Lucie, what are the big challenges facing your company and your industry now, do you reckon?
Well, I think one of the challenges, and you mentioned it sort of fairly early on, was around data and the ability to get really good quality data, because AI models are only trained on really good quality data. So one of the reasons why we spend an awful lot of time in people's homes and we deploy the sensors around it is so that those 20,000 data points that we ingest per day per patient are actually consistent and reliable, so that we can build these models and understand some of the complications of the individuals and some of the contextual overlays that we're seeing in the home. So I think as we start looking at the use of AI, and I will come back to your waiting list point, because we do reduce waiting lists in our application of AI, I think that the really critical thing is about understanding the quality of the data and the methodologies and how we're going to extract that information, those insights that we can get from those patterns and those behaviours. And in a clinical setting, you have quite carefully managed and curated sort of environments, I suppose, to collect that data with. When you're out and about in a home setting where you've got lots of other factors that are changing constantly, it becomes a lot more complex. And I think really that's where MySense is focused.
And tell me, what's your gut feeling about the political will towards all of this? Because ultimately, if governments are going to invest money, politicians need to be on board with this, don't they?
Absolutely. I think there is a lot of political goodwill towards it. I think people are excited by it. Obviously, there's been a lot of stuff in the press recently about some of the more scary side of AI and its application. However, I think that if you are working with businesses that take their ethical and moral responsibility correctly, you're going to produce some really good quality outcomes, and that's where they need to focus their attention.
Karol, over the many years of your medical career, you've dealt with leaders at all levels of government. What would you say to prime ministers now who are having advisors saying to them that we need to be setting aside budgets for AI tools in cancer screening?
They have to listen, there's no doubt. I mean, if you just look at the revolution in smartphones, what's happened just in the last decade, it's quite amazing what you can do with a smartphone. Not so much in healthcare. That's the problem. But you can in everything else. You can book an airline ticket to New York tomorrow. You can order whatever you like, a fantastic meal delivered to your house in 10 minutes, all sorts of things without speaking to anybody. So this is sort of using artificial intelligence to predict where the demand is going to be. In healthcare, we sort of tried to hide a bit. And I think the patients are not afraid of it, as long as the doctors are there, as long as the other health professionals are there. And it has huge potential to cut down waiting lists, simply because it can sort out who really needs things. So a great example is breast cancer chemotherapy after surgery. Who needs it? I've got a lot of experience in making that decision, and I use various factors. There are various algorithms you can use, but if you've got an unlimited amount of data, as we've heard, that unlimited amount of data can't be sifted by the human brain, but it can be by a computer, and it can learn as it goes on. So you can actually choose which patients really need chemotherapy and which would have exactly the same outcome if they didn't get chemotherapy. So you reduce the chemotherapy waiting list. And that goes right through medicine, predicting who really needs something and who doesn't. So I think it's going to be a fantastic opportunity, as long as the politicians don't get scared by the sort of the idea that robots are going to make decisions, clinical decisions. They're not. Doctors will still do that. They'll just use data in a very different way.
Well, talking of data, Karol, I want to read and look at some statistics we've got from the European Breast Cancer Coalition. Breast cancer is the most commonly diagnosed cancer in women and accounts for 1 in 4 annual cancer cases worldwide. Breast cancer is the leading cause of cancer death for 1 in 6 women in Europe. 1 in 11 women in the European Union will develop breast cancer before the age of 74. An estimated 21% of breast cancer cases in Europe occur in women younger than 50 years old. Anil, breast cancer is here to stay. I mean, that is an appalling fact of life. My own mother lives with it. My sister-in-law lives with it. Every family in the country is affected by breast cancer. I mean, it's time now to embrace anything we can to spot it early.
Absolutely. I mean, I think we know that breast cancer incidences have increased, even in Asian community, who have migrated from India, living in this country. If you go to Gujarat in India, you have a cancer incidence of 17 per 100,000, So there is a much higher incidence of breast cancer within the Western hemisphere, while the breast cancer incidences are increasing. And I think because women are living longer, some people will develop when they are older, some at younger age. We should comfort them that we are making all these advances, with AI, with diagnostic things, which have, even in last 30 years, I have seen, how we have moved in diagnosis of breast cancer. I think 25 years back, we were only doing stereotactic biopsy, now ultrasound-guided tomosynthesis. So there are various MRI-guided biopsies. So we are doing a lot more to reach out to these women and to get the cancer, diagnosed. And I think then get the treatment started much earlier. So I think one issue I would say is that we need to ensure that once we made the diagnosis, then there should be expeditious pathway, so that these patients don't wait too long, for have their operation, for their chemotherapy, radiotherapy. And I think we also need to look at support system for women, once they have been diagnosed with cancer and have treatment, to look after, their well-being, support, and palliative care, because still, sadly, a lot of women die from breast cancer, who had breast cancer. And I think we need to make sure that that pathway is, is improved so that they have better palliative care and support. Some of the things, what Lucie is saying, that comes in the way, because pain relief, etc., is very important.
Lucie, my final question to you, looking ahead to next year and the years ahead, I think you're probably going to be very busy, your industry.
I would imagine so, yes, I would imagine so. And you're absolutely right. Palliative is one of those areas that we're working with at the moment. And I think it really does have the opportunity to provide choice, to provide dignity, and give people the opportunity to feel like that care that they're receiving is very personalised to them and their requirements. And that's really exciting.
Lucie, Anil, thank you so much. And Professor Karol Sikora. Remember, you can see more discussion and debate on our YouTube channel. Search for Roundtable TRT World. But for now, from me and Brady and all of the team here, goodbye and thank you for watching.